For section 1.10, I'm going to look at basically two types of problems. The first one that you might run into a little issue with is using your calculator to help you find the least squares regression line for a specific table. And then once you have that regression line, you're going to use that to make an estimation. And then the other type of problem that I'm going to do is finding a mathematical statement or model that'll represent a statement. And this is all the joint, direct, and inverse variation. And realistically, section 1.10 breaks down to one of those two types of problems. So most of your homework is going to deal with this. You'll have a couple that have the least squares regression line, but most of them are going to deal with the mathematical modeling. Alright, so I want to find the least squares regression line for the following table. It gives me the years, and then it gives me prize money for, doesn't really matter what it is, but for something. And I'm assuming that that's probably in thousands or hundreds, or doesn't really matter. Alright, so I want to enter this information into my calculator. And typically what I suggest you do, and this is what the book is most likely going to do, so when you're checking your answers in the book, you'll want to do this, otherwise your answer is going to be a little bit different. Anytime they use a date, whatever the starting date is, the back number is what they're going to use for t. So like, for example, when I actually enter this into my calculator, I'm going to say 1995 is really a 5, and then this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So I'm not going to actually enter in the dates. I'm going to enter in these numbers instead. And can I enter in the dates? Yes, it's going to change your least squares regression line a little bit, and it might change your answer a little bit. So this is what I recommend that you do in your homework. If this happened on the test, I'd recommend that you do this on the test as well. Alright, so going to want to go ahead and pull out your calculator. And to enter this information into a table, this is something that hopefully you have written down in your notes already, but if you don't, you want to write this down. You're looking for the button that says Stat on it, which is right here. You're going to push that, and then you get the following options. You actually want to keep it under Edit. It's on what you want. You want to hit Enter on Edit. And then you can see at the top here, it asks for List 1, List 2, List 3. If you ever take AP Stats, you'll end up using probably a lot of those lists. We only need List 1 and List 2 for this. List 1 is going to be my X values. So I'm going to go ahead and list off all of these X values. And X values, if they give you a year, which anything that we're going to be doing is going to deal with dates, the date is the actual X value. So I'm going to enter in 5. So I'm going to hit the 5, and you can't see me doing it, but I'm hitting 5 and then enter. 6 and then enter, 7 and then enter, 8, and so on until you have all of these entered in, all of these X values. Now make sure that you're careful because you bump the wrong number. Instead of hitting 11, if I bump 12, it's going to throw off your answer, so make sure that you're okay, that you have all of them entered incorrectly. Alright, so then I'm just going to arrow over to the left, or sorry, I guess that's to the right, and L2 is going to be whatever this is, if it's prize money or whatever they happen to give you besides the date. And I'm going to enter all those in. Now I need to make sure that these come together as, these are like points on a graph, so they need to be pairs. I can't just enter these numbers in randomly. I have to actually follow the order. So again, be careful when you're entering in 5.38, 5.45, and so on. You want to make sure that you don't make any errors when you're doing this. It's easy to bump a number incorrectly, which is unfortunate, especially if you're doing this on, say, a test, because then it's going to throw your answer off a little bit, even though technically you know what you're doing and you've done everything right, but it's going to give you a mistake. Alright, assuming you've done all this right, you should have the same number of numbers in both lists. If you don't, that means you missed something or you have an extra number in there somewhere. Alright, once you have all of that entered in, I'm going to quit or go back to the main screen, and quit you can see is right above mode here. So you are going to hit second and then mode, and that'll take you back to what we call the home screen. Alright, so I got all the information in there. So now to actually get the least squares regression line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Stat again. I'm going to slide over to the right, so I highlight Calc. And then remember what this is called. This is called a least squares regression line. We are looking for, you see the word REG, which stands for regression. We see a lot of those. Ours is a linear equation, so I'm going to pick number 4. And you can go down to number 4 and hit enter, or if you see here, I'm just going to hit number 4 and it'll do it for me. Now depending on your calculator, you might see this, or you might see this and then it's got a bunch of options for you. if you have this, go ahead and just hit enter and it's going to calculate it for you. All you really need is a and b here. The r squared and r, that's something that you would end up using for stats. If you have that and you have all that other information, go down to, I think it says calculate, and hit enter, and it should give you this same information. If it doesn't, yeah, it's something you want to come in and ask me for help. It's probably something simple that we can fix with your calculator. All right, if you look at here, you can see that this is the line, y equals ax plus b. So a is the slope, and the slope number they're giving me is 0.06. So I'm going to say that my equation is y is equal to 0.682. Whoops, I missed a 0 in there. Y is equal to 0.0682x. And then my y-intercept at the b value is 5 points. Since I went 4 decimal places here, I'm going to go 4 decimal places with this decimal. 5.0321, I guess it would round to. So there's my least squares regression line. All right. All right, so now I'll go ahead and go back to the home screen. I guess I am on the home screen. Go ahead and hit clear to clear that out. You don't have to clear it out. The second part of this problem says, using your least squares regression line, so using this thing, estimate the prize money in the year 2014. Remember what you were doing when you were entering this into the table. You were putting the x values in for the year. So that means this is representing an x value. They want us to find the prize money, which is a y value. Also remember what you did up here. This was 1995. We didn't actually enter 1995 in for the x value. We entered 5 in. So I have to think about what number is x if it's the year 2014. And if you sat there and you counted it out, to get to 2000, that was the year 10, and then you would have another 14 years. So we would be saying that t is equal to 24 here. And you can always count it out if you don't believe me, but that's eventually what you're going to end up with. So you're going to take 24 and you're going to plug it in for x. So now I'm going to take my calculator. Again, if this was on the test, it would be a calculator part. And you're just going to simply type that in. I'm going to type 0.0682 times 24, did we say? Yep, times 24. Go ahead and hit enter for that one. And then I'm going to add 5.0321. Hit enter. And that's what our prize money would be. It would be 6.669. Whether that's in hundreds or thousands or millions doesn't really matter. Alright, so that's how you're going to define the least squares regression line using your calculator. Alright, that was one type of problem. The other types of problems that you see, and you see quite a few of them, deal with finding a mathematical model to represent a statement. And you have one chunk of problems where they give you something like this. It just says t varies jointly as the square root, or sorry, as the square of b and d. And anytime you see the word varies, you're going to have to instinctively tell yourself that the constant of variation, which is k, is in the problem. Whenever I see varies, whatever variable is in front of it, that's what's isolated on the left, on the left side of the equal sign. So it's t is equal to, again, I see varies, k is just automatically in this problem. It's the most common mistake to forget to put it in there, so make sure that you just immediately put that down. And then it varies jointly. Jointly means multiplying, and it means that you have more than one term that you're multiplying, and you can see I do have more than one. I have the square of b and d. So I'm going to multiply k times the square of b, or b squared, and d. And that's my answer. That's all that they're looking for. Pay attention to that word. If that varies directly, that again means multiplying, but there would be just one thing, not two. If that was inversely, that means you would divide k by whatever they gave you. So on to the next one. You can notice that this is a very similar type of problem. We are again given f varies directly as c and inversely as the square root of n, kind of like this one was. And then we're given this random information. And the reason they're giving you these numbers is they want you to actually figure out what k is in this problem. So it's kind of an extra step. So again, look for the word varies. There it is. What do you see on the left side? It's f. So it's going to be f is equal to, now it varies directly, which means k is getting multiplied by c. And inversely. Inversely means to divide, so I'm going to divide by the square root of n. And so if you were doing a problem like letter A, that's the answer that you would have. Now we are going to do another step here. I'm going to plug these three numbers in and figure out what is the actual K number. So this is kind of like the last chunk of problems that you end up doing for the homework, where I'm going to say, okay, F is equal to 6. K, I don't know that. That's the constant of variation. I'll figure that out later. C is negative 4. And N is the square root of 25. And then up to you how you want to go about solving it. I know that's 5. Maybe I cross multiply and say it's 30 is equal to negative 4 times K. Divide both sides by negative 4 and make sure that you do simplify when you do that. So we are saying that our K value is equal to negative 15 halves. And now I'm going to take that number and just substitute it in for K. And that would give me my final answer. Now, since it's a fraction, I don't want to have a complex fraction for an answer. The 15 or the negative 15 is actually in the numerator. If it was just negative 15, this would be my answer. But because it's negative, whoops, sorry about that. Because it's negative 15 over 2, I don't want to write negative 15 over 2 in this spot. The 2 is actually down here. And there's your final answer. Very similar to letter A, it's just you have an extra step to figure out what the K value is. And then the only other thing that you would do, same idea, is maybe doing a story problem like this. So, read through this, and what did I say when I was doing these problems? I always look for the word varies, and then look to see what's in front of it. I'm going to do the same thing here. I read through, it says the rate of growth, capital R, of a population is jointly proportional to. I notice I don't see the word varies. Proportional is kind of the same thing. So as soon as I see that, I'm going to look, what's actually in front of it? Well, it's the rate of growth, or capital R. That's what's going to be isolated on the left-hand side. Again, it doesn't say varies, but proportional, kind of the same thing. I know K is automatically there. It's jointly. So I should be multiplying by 2 or more things here. So now I'll figure out what are those things, and I'm going to find that on the right side of the wherever this thing is. So if I look here, it says, to the size S, there's 1 of the population, and, there's the second one, the difference between S and the maximum population size L. So these are the two things that are getting multiplied by K. So it's S and, because it's a quantity being added or subtracted in any parentheses, the difference of S and L. Now since L is a maximum population size, it's bigger than S, so I would want to do this. And that would be my equation. So very similar to A and B, it's just looking at a story problem. Again, identify when you see the word proportional or varies directly or varies whatever. Look in front for this variable and then look behind it to get the other two variables. Hopefully that'll help you out with 1.10. Like always, if you have trouble, don't be afraid to come in the morning and ask for help.